Hi, this is Pam from Purple Air Frog Arts. I have a confession. This Brazilian agate is the star of this video, but another stone will be standing in for the first part because I made a different video and I wasn't happy with how it turned out. That first part was fine and I will be leaving that in and then adding in the second part of the second video that I did. That one will feature this stone, though hopefully you wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't told you. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoy this video. Hi everybody, and welcome back or welcome to the PAFA Wire Wrapping channel. Today I'm going to show you, hopefully, how to make this piece here. This is going to be made with dead soft raw copper. This is 20 gauge square that we've got here, 3 pieces that are 14 inches long, or actually I think they're 13. I did it before with this one and I don't think I needed 14, so I did 13. You're also going to need 26 gauge round dead soft copper wire that's for this weave. It's not a great weave, but I wanted to do something simple to start with. Now this I did also, this is a figure 8 weave that I did with the 26 gauge, but for simplicity purposes, I'm going to use the half round 22 gauge for the bail for this one. For the bottom part, you're going to need about 3.5 inches and you do about 10 wraps. And for the bail, I would say probably a good 10 to 12 inches for your bail. And I think that's it as far as wires. The stone I'm using is a a Brazilian agate. And it's a little bit hard to see the agate lines, but I wanted the one that was a little bit just plain in color. That is a Marquise shape. That means that it has points on both ends. And it's a little bit long. It's probably, if you're doing centimeters, it's about 40 millimeters long, or 4 centimeters. In inches, it would be about a little over 1.5 inches, not quite 1 3/4 inches. As far as width, it is about 20 millimeters, or about 3/4 of an inch long, or wide, I'm sorry. Now the tools you're going to need would be tweezer nose pliers, wire straighteners, which I use to straighten my wires before I take them off the spool, flat nose pliers for bending the wire into a V shape, of course flush cutters. Those are very important, and these round nose pliers are helpful, and that's about it. Okay, let's get started, and let me get my piece of half round 22 gauge, and you can wrap it anywhere right now lightly, not loose but not too tight, just a few times around. And then you want to get to about 10 wraps. This I'm going to make the inside because I've got the last wrap here. I'm going to cut it off around the middle there, if you can see that. And then I'm going to cut this one off. The other one was so short I didn't need to cut it. And once you do that, before you press them down, take your ruler, which is the other thing I forgot to mention you should have, is a ruler. And because this is 13 inches, I want to go at about 6.5, making sure all the wires are about, not that that's a big deal right now, except it'll be harder to push them through once you tighten up your wraps. So you want your wires to be at about 6.5, and you also want to squish them down so that they're all together as best you can. Okay, and then and only then can you take your either your flat nose or your tweezer nose and just really tighten those down on the wire. Using the flat nose pliers, go about halfway between the wraps and then bend them kind of at a sharp angle, but not too far, because we want to make sure that our stone is going to fit into that angle. And also take your fingers and just kind of warm up the wires, because you're going to have to be moving them. And what I usually do is take my fingers like this. It kind of helps to shape it around. This is Loctite putty, and I usually put it on this self-healing mat that I have. This is the inch side, but there's also a side for millimeters and centimeters. And you can put your little piece there, right in the center. Get that out of the way. And then, so that way, if you use the Loctite stuff, which I always talk about in my videos, that keeps your stone from moving all over the place, which is never a good idea. Making sure as you do that, that this isn't moving all over the place. You're going to bring them across to about there. And then right up at the line, if you can see that, this won't look so bad once I get done here. I'm a little bit farther back from the camera, so I apologize. But at least I think you can still see it. That's my goal for this year, is that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, then make it cross right at the same spot and do that. Okay, and you don't need a big gap. You just need enough gap between the stone and where these guys meet for your bale wires to go under. Just want to make sure they're going to be right where the V is. And if you need to, if it's a little bit loose or down here, you can take your pliers and just kind of push that together a little bit carefully so that it looks like it fits better. Okay. So at that point, you make sure that and that's what's great about square wires, is that they will line up. So you want to make sure that they're lined up, press them together. At least they should line up. and press them together and just make sure you have a pretty good shape that looks straight there. Okay. And after that, we're going to cover this back up. We don't need this anymore. So that'll be a little less distracting. And take off that Loctite putty. Okay. From here, we're going to take our 22 gauge half round. I've already got mine off the spool, so hopefully I have enough here. Okay, so we're going to make sure that the half round part is on the top and the flatter part is on the bottom. You take about an inch extra and push it over. Now I'm left-handed, so you'll do this in whichever direction works best for your handedness situation. So wrap it around a couple times, and as you do that, make sure that your wires remain lined up. And then I take my tweezer nose pliers. It just makes it easier to wrap it around once or twice more. And I'm going to go under with whatever's left over just to secure that a little bit better. Okay, so then that won't come loose now, and I can wrap this one more time. And I think because this usually it's you know, not written in stone, no pun intended, but you usually want the part that comes out to be coming out toward the front. Okay, so once you've done that, you're going to start separating your wires. I want the frontmost wires, all 4 of them, to go in the front, and the back will be the bale. Doing this, then you can start, and if you bend them back a little bit, a little easier for you to get under there. So you want to do that, and it's a little tricky at first because you've got all the wires. And I will probably speed this up, but just make sure your wires that you don't overlap your wraps, that they're nice and lined up like this, and that as you go, that these 2 main wires, as you can see, they're starting to get twisty. So as you go, just straighten them back and make them go back where they need to go, and then use your fingernail to press that down so that it looks nice. And then you keep going till you get, I'd say about 1.25 inches is a good length for your bale. Okay, I am back. I've got about a little less than 1.25 inches, and my bale wires are done. But now what I'm going to do before we do anything else is go around to the back. First you should make sure that after you've wrapped your bale wires that the stone still fits nicely. Okay, and then you're going to go around to the back, take your fingernail and separate the wires on the back. That's where the bale runs. And then just go as close to the bail, to the wraps as you can, and just bend inward. Then do the exact same thing on the other side, where you separate it with your nail and then press inward. And that creates a little bit of a cage, so to speak, for your stone to go into. Okay. And then making sure that it still fits nicely, put the stone in, and then do the same thing at the bottom. Usually you have to turn it around to do the other side, which is what I am doing. And just try to get that as closely matching to the other side as you can. Okay, now that we've done that, you can press your bail wires down, make sure your bail looks relatively straight, bend it forward, and then use your fingers to just, you can use a bail making tool, but I tend to use my fingers. Okay, so now we're going to bend the wires through the bail at the bottom. Not through the bail, through the V, and then press the bail into sort of a Q-tippy shape using your tweezer nose pliers. And then we're going to separate the wires, making sure that they're not crisscrossed as they're through there. Sometimes they will cross when you push them through. And you're going to put one on either side, and it looks like I did just have it crisscrossed a little bit. Okay, and we're going to move these other guys out of the way, being gentle because you don't want to bend them, and straighten up your bail. And then we're going to, once we did this out of the way, we're going to go ahead and pull them around to the back. Now what I'm going to do with these is I am actually going to cut off the one that's facing our left and just cut it flush with the front, which I'll do momentarily. Just want to make sure it's pulled tightly through before you do that. And just snip this off right there, flush at the front. And you're not going to be able, you are going to be able to see it, but hopefully when we get the design done, you won't be seeing what's under there at all. Now you're going to have to keep the other one on. Do not cut that off because that is going to secure your bail. And so you want to cut it probably about 3 to 4 millimeters past the end of the frame there, and snip that. And then we're going to take our tweezer nose pliers and just, you're going to take them and twist that through, and then you're going to, this is going to take a little bit of maneuvering, but you're going to have to push it under and then press it down good and tight so that the bail is now secure. And we are going to just make sure everything looks good. And now we're going to start working with these other wires, but you want to make sure everything's all nice and straight first. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of bend these two wires that are facing the side. We're sort of going to bend them a bit toward the front, and we're going to start doing a weave on that left side. So we're going to use the 26 gauge wire, there it is, and we're going to wrap 3 times, leaving a little bit of a tail. And this is going to be the hardest, most fiddly part of this because getting it started is always the worst. So you're going to wrap it under there, leaving a bit of a tail, and then you're going to wrap it 3 times between the 2 wires. And getting that first one is such a challenge that you do need to use the tweezer nose to help you a little bit. That'll make life a lot easier. So there's one. Try and pull that snugly. And then I'm going to go around again. And this is, like I said, the most challenging part. So be patient with yourself and just hold on to both ends of the wire the best you can as you do this. Meaning both ends of, not both ends of the wire, but the one end of the weaving wire and then the wire it's on, just to keep everything stable. And then once you've got the 3, kind of squish them together. Make sure they look kind of snug. You don't want them flopping around too loose there. Okay, then we're gonna push this up all the way up toward the where the bail is. And then we're going to take that little bit of tail that we have left over and stick that under the bail and just wrap it around. Now, I'm not going to wrap this tightly because it's going to be cut off later, but it's just to keep your 3 wires from moving down the bottom wire there. Okay, now that we've done that, we've got 3 wraps on the bottom. We're going to be doing a 3-2 weave. So basically you'll be wrapping 3 times around the bottom wire, and then you're going to be wrapping twice around both. And we'll be doing that until we get to, I think, maybe 2 inches left of the wire, because we will be using some of the bare wire that doesn't have a weave for some other design. So don't cut that off when you get to the 2 inches. So we're going to go ahead and do this, and then I'll probably cut this out because once I get a few going so you can see how it's done. And so there we go. This is another 3 wrap, and that's why I bent the ends of that the other 2 wires, to make it a little bit easier to go in between them, because it can be difficult. But just make sure that they aren't crisscrossed and you don't end up going in between a crisscross, because you'll have to undo that. So, and then you know, when you bend the wires, obviously bend them outward in either direction, which will make it easier to know which wire is which. So we're going to do another 3 wraps here, and then if we can not get these wires all in our way, we're going to do the 2 wraps again, making sure that when you do your 2 wraps that your wires are close together, because you don't want a big gap there. So close them up and then separate them to do the 3 wires, and so on, so that you have a nice tight weave. So if you can see, this is what I've done here. Just follow that pattern all the way till you get to about 2 inches to the end. 3 2 3 2 3 2. Okay, so this I'm going to keep doing. Before I go though, I do want to just measure this to see how much length I have left here. It looks like it's about a 5 inch, close to 5 inches long. And what I want to do is get to where I leave about 2 inches for the remainder of the bare wire. And then I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and this has all been woven to the point where I want it to be. As you can see, there's about 2 inches left, which is what I wanted. And we're going to now start straightening this up before we go ahead and start trying to make a circle with it. So what you need to do is bend it back just a little bit, and then start bending it gently. Once you snip this bit off here, because we're going to leave a tail as before. Okay, now we're going to start bending it gently, first up and then around, trying to keep it sort of flat at the top, which I may need to flatten more later. Okay, so we're just going to bend it gently, and putting our thumb on it will help to make it stay in place as we try to bend it around to another circular motion there. And now we're going to just have to kind of adjust it. Now we've got one larger circle and one smaller one. And let's see, I think I'm going to adjust this just a little bit down. And then we're going to go around again, or maybe we'll just go back, and then I'll put my thumb on it and we will go the opposite direction. But we have to straighten it because it keeps wanting to bend outward. So we're going to go in the opposite direction and try to make a circle going upward here, which is, once you start doing this, it's a little bit harder to do because your wire is harder once you've been working with it. And let's see, I think that might be a little smaller than, because we want to get the end like right at the top of the circle there. Okay, so that looks about right. And there's going to be a lot of fiddling to try to get it the way you want. And you know, my design is kind of weird and and swirly and everything. I'm just trying to teach you some techniques, but you can, you know, do whatever you want to do that makes it make sense to you when you do yours. So now we've got this, and we're going to start trying to make circles with this first bare wire that we lift it upward, and then we're going to turn it around. It kind of helps to move the whole piece around and kind of bend it back to make the circles shape, and then get those out of the way, and then just keep bending. What you basically want to do, and you use your pliers to sort of firm that up into a circle, the shape you and size you want it to be. And the other ones are going to be cascading in the front and slightly smaller, hopefully. And you have to keep going around and around to get this effect here. Again, you know, adjust as you go. So we're going to do one more, and that one's going to be a little bit harder because we've got very little wire left. And when we get to the point we want it to be, using the pliers here, then we're going to be cutting it like right around the center top of that last circle, and we're going to face the flush cutters in. The flush side will be out because we want to leave sort of a little point that we're going to maybe take our pliers and sort of pinch down a little bit, and that'll look better when we bend the rest of this around. So just hold on to that so it doesn't go flying into your cat's food dish. And so now, see, we're going to swish this down, make a little bit of a point there, and I'm going to start curling this point downward to make a little curl. And it's a little difficult because it's a very tight little area, and it kind of helps to pull the curl out to get it a little bit better. You can see it hopefully clearly now, and I'm pressing it in, but I have to get it out a little bit to get it pressed in as much as I want. But you can see that point that I made by clipping it the right way with the flush cutters and then pressing it down with the tweezer nose pliers. And now I'm going to just kind of try to grab these and pull them down so they look like they're cascading, like I said. They're going to be sticking out a little bit, oops. And then I can just press them down with my fingers, and then we have a nice little cascade of curls in there. The next thing we're going to do will be to pull that other wire. First, we're going to stick this short one. Sorry, I'll go back to the other wire in a minute. We're going to stick this short one underneath that big curl, and then we're going to attach it to the back. And I'm going to have to cut some of this off because it is too long, I think. So yeah, there we go. I cut it off and use the tweezers to lift the back wire up so I can slip it under. By the way, if you're noticing the back here, I may not have shown you this, but I did go in and bend up some of the wires up near the top because it's such a tall stone. It needs a little bit of extra security not to slip out at the top, because being held in at the bottom with those two bends is probably not enough for something this large. So just keep that in mind. You might want to do another sort of hourglass. Mine looks terrible, but you might want to do another sort of hourglass in, pinch in with the upper wires. Okay, so I'm going to just snip this off. I've got about 3 wraps on there, and then I'll swish it down. And now, let's see, we can, if there's a sharp bit sticking where you don't want it, just take your pliers and just kind of twist inward, and it'll make it turn until you get it so there's nothing sharp sticking out. Okay, that's secure. Now, I'm going to go back to this wire. Hold your thumb on that wire to keep it from getting a weird bend, and then move it pretty much all the way against that swirl, and then you're going to move it backwards. So, okay, so then take your thumb and just try to press that down with your thumb on it, and go back the other way. So you're going to make another swirl. You can cut a lot of this off. We won't be needing it. So, and again, I put the flush cutters facing inward, so we'll have that little point. And then I'm going to take the round nose pliers and we're going to make a curl the best we can here. And we may have to open that up a little bit because it's not, there we go. I'm going to press that point down and then we'll try again. I want to try to get the curl to go inward like the other one did. And so you have to kind of make it bigger in order to get that to go in as far as you want, and then press it in with the needle nose again. So it makes that nice little curl. And then you can grab it this way and just kind of turn, although it got a little too far in when I did that. So I'm going to move it out and try and readjust it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Flatten that, and then can just again grab the whole thing and turn it inward. Okay, now this is going to have to be attached with a half round because it's flopping around there and you don't want that. It can catch on something. Okay, I've got the half round. I've cut about, I don't know, 2 inches, and I'm going to stick this hopefully through one of these curls here and then stick it back through, which is always challenging. I had to turn it around because the half round was sticking out. The flat part was out. Never a lot of fun. So we're going to do our best here to get this through, and hopefully it won't be too blurry because I'm moving around so much. So I basically want to get it through a loop and then through a wire so that it'll be attached. And again, the tweezers are really your best friend when it comes to trying to get wires out of tiny little spaces like this. And it's not easy, but I've got it to come through here. And now I just have to pick up the pliers and just try and do a few wraps here around that wire to secure the things that were flopping about. Now this little end has gotten a little too bent up, so I'm going to have to cut off the end of it. I think I'll still be able to get about 2 wraps out of that, which should be enough because I've got more wire for the other connection. Now we have the other part of the half round, and I'm going to connect that on the back. I'm going to try to put this under, but I'll put a little curve on it before I try that, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so we've got a curve, and oh, that went easily. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to have to move it up a little bit, make sure it's tight. And then we're going to try it again. And there it goes. Good. Okay. That is number 2, and I'm going to do this one more time. Okay, that's that last one. And squish it together. And then I'm going to cut that off. All right, we got that snipped off, and we're just going to twist it under, make sure that the Sharpie things aren't sticking out. And turn that around. And look at it, looks okay. All right. Okay, looking good so far. Now we're going to the other side. Okay. Just we can now take this off and cut this off, this little piece of wire. You can actually pull it off if it's too tight to get in there with your flush cutters. You can just pull it off until you've gotten all the sharp ends that would poke out, and just kind of put your pliers in there and just sort of push down anything that could somehow poke out. Okay, just going to double check on that. And I'm actually going to bend out toward the front the weave wires, which I should have done earlier before I started even bending, because that'll make it look nicer and more flat. So I'm just going to make a little adjustment here on this swirl and just give it another look. And again, I'm going to have to tie that down with the half round. Okay, so we're going to straighten out these other 2 wires and going to snip off a lot of them because I really just don't need that much. And then we're going to take the inner one and bend it down. And we're going to take the outer one and we're going to twist it because this is another thing you can do, which is fun. With square wire, you can make these beautiful little twists that reflect the light really well and make it look even shinier. But it does harden your wire more. So it will be a little bit harder to get it properly bent. So I had to straighten that out a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take that first inner wire and I'm going to follow it closely with the outer wire that I just twisted. You want to have them sort of one following the other. And if you have to use your tweezer nose to try to adjust that a little bit so it looks more natural, then just do that. And I'm going to just twist that in a little bit. Okay, and let's see. Okay, that's pretty good. Almost. I have to straighten this out a little bit more. And pull it down. Sometimes you straighten it out and then pull it down, it'll get closer. Okay. What now? Let's see. Okay, so put your thumb on top of the wires, right where the stone starts, and then bend outward both the wires at once. And pull that all the way around, making sure your wires don't crisscross when you're doing it. Tighten them up if you need to because they're getting away from each other. So you might need to take the tweezer nose pliers and just kind of pull on the outer one. That'll get it a little bit closer if you don't drop it first. Okay, so I'm just going to get those nice and tight, push them in somewhat, and then we're going to end up bending it all the way out in a second, but I just need to straighten this up a little bit, kind of press them flat together. And now I'm going to bend them together while I'm holding on to that swirl so it doesn't get distorted. And I'm going to bend the twisted one back and the other one next to it. And then I'm going to put the thumb down and bend back again. Okay, and then we've got this little, kind of a little curve here. I'm going to cut some of this off and leaving just enough to make swirls going in opposite directions with each one. So now we're going to use the round nose pliers, or after we separate them. And I might just cut them, the tips, I do want the tips cut with the flush side on the outside. So I'm just going to take a little bit more off to facilitate that. And now I'm going to press those ends down to give them little points, because we're going to do those curls like we did on the previous side. And let's see, okay, separate them out. And this is hard because it's a little bit tricky to grab that end there when it's on the stone. The other end, I was going to try to double this, but apparently I changed my mind, and I am actually going to bend this one in with that curl. I may have to pull it out again because it's too close. And then just kind of bend it out and then bend it back in to make the little curl. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to take the other one, try to get that, but it didn't work. So I'm going to go I'm going to be bending that the opposite direction. Okay, because it's not big enough to make a double curl. And it is tricky. Okay, so now I'm going to grab those round nose pliers and I'm going to bend this in the opposite direction. It's very slippery trying to make a curl with the stone underneath there because it keeps sliding on the stone. Now I'm going to press that in with the half round. I mean, not the half round, what am I saying? With the tweezer nose pliers. And I'm going to just move the whole thing inward and then kind of hold my thumb down on the bigger swirl and bend the rest back toward the frame slowly. Okay. All right, and then just might, okay, I think that's adjusted. I just make a lot of adjustments till I get it to where I really want it to look like what I want it to look like, which doesn't always turn out exactly, but that's the nature of wire art, is that you learn as you go sometimes. And I'm going to bend that out more toward the frame, bend that out more toward the frame, and then bend them in. And okay, that is close to what I want there. I'm going to have to use the half round again to secure these. So both sides are going to need securing, which is why this is such a long video. And hopefully it'll be worth it. And I'm just going to really bend that one up. Make another swirl with it. And if you get your wires scratched up, you can use a file, sandpaper, or a Dremel to try and get any horrible little tool marks out that inevitably come with overworking your wire. You do want to consider, if you have copper, oxidizing it. It gives it a really cool look. This piece won't be oxidized for the end of the video, but I will probably oxidize it before I try to sell it. And it's something that in the springtime I'll try to teach you, but right now it's winter and it's too cold and it has to be done outdoors. Okay, so I've got my half round and I'm going to go ahead and put that under one of my curls, or the bottom curl. And this is the really fun part here, because you just have to try to get a wire through all of this this tiny stuff again. I'm going to see how this works out. So I'm going to curl it over, get the pliers, try and get it underneath itself once at least. Okay, I'm going to try and get that up through the curl. But sometimes you have to curve it in order to get it through. And that's kind of a lot of trial and error. Okay, so I did manage to get it through there, because you just want to wrap it at least once through your loop. And then I'm going to wrap it underneath these wires after I straighten it. And do the same thing on the other side. Let's see, which side is easier? This one, I guess. We'll just do it through this one 3 times, and then we'll do it the more difficult one after this. So you just push it through, and yep, okay. Pinch it together. That one's gonna be a problem, I think. So I'm just gonna go ahead and try to get that out of the way. But I think this is going to be a challenge. Indeed, this ended up being a challenge, mostly to stay on camera, and I am sorry for that, because I thought I was doing really well, but for this little last bit here, I did not. I did get it in, as you can sort of see by the way I pulled with the tweezers, and now I'm back. Okay, so I had to slide it underneath, and when you're dealing with putting these pieces, together like this, just use a lot of patience. Curl the wire as necessary. Move the wires with tweezers if you can, and you'll get there. It's just kind of a big challenge to put that little half round underneath the tight wires, and sometimes I just get so stubborn about trying to do it the hard way that I don't think about doing it in an easier way by lifting the wires with tweezers. So after much struggling, you can see I finally got my stubborn self to get it through. And I'm sorry, the camera work here is not quite up to par because I was so focused on dealing with that darn wire that I wasn't thinking as much about the camera work as I should have, and I'm sorry for that. So as you see, I'm still making some adjustments, and I need to cut this other wire off from the last wraps that I did. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Or one more time, I guess I'm going to do another wrap. If you'll recall, this is all voiceover because I lost the audio from when I was doing it the first time. And just struggling to get one more. I don't really know why I needed one more wrap, but I guess I thought I did. So I'm just going to snip that off. We're getting close to done, so I appreciate your patience. This is, doing those little final details is often the hardest part of making a piece. And as you can see, it's a little bit challenging, and there's some pressure when you're on camera too. But I think this is going to be where we pretty much get it done. As soon as I do this one last connection, because the other side is a little bit loose still. And so I'm going to grab another piece of half round wire. So I'm going to slip this through this wire here and then put it through that curl, but I'm going to have to lift it up a little bit. That'll make it so much easier than it was on the other side. So we're going to slip that through there, pull it up with the tweezer nose, and then I'm going to wrap around that wire again and secure that on there. We'll do it a couple more times. If I can get that through. Okay, and one more time. And then that is going to be swished together, and we'll work on the other one. So that I'm going to try to get through that loop and the wire, or maybe both wires. I'm not sure. Yeah, both wires would be easier. No, but I'm just going to try and snip off that other wire first and just kind of twist that in so the sharp bit's not sticking out. And then we'll go back to this one. Let's see. I'm just going to try to tuck this under the one wire. And I think that's the loop is secured enough. And doing that once or twice more. If I can get it through. It's a little bit tricky here, and I need my tweezers. It's very, very difficult sometimes. Okay. So one more time, I'm trying to do this. I'm going to have to put a little bit of a bend in this end of this wire, and hopefully that will help facilitate me getting it actually through and underneath a little bit better than the previous time. I still might need my tweezers. Let's see. Yep, got it up. Well, let's just hope. I have to press it down a little bit to get it out. Okay, there we go. All right, and I'm going to snip this off with my flush cutters, and I'm going to press it down and just do a couple of little adjustments here. And I think that pretty much does it. I am going to make some other adjustments though. So one thing is that I didn't want the curls to be so far off. I wanted them to cover up the bail front where the wires I tucked underneath were. And I'm going to be moving that now. And it's better if you do this to start with instead of trying to do it after the fact. But I did recognize it at least. I'm not really happy because I can still see through that hole there. So I'm thinking I may put a 4mm dragon's blood in there. I think that'll fit fine. And then I'll have the photo after at the end of the video. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope that you will like and subscribe, and please leave your comments. Thank you so much. Have a great day.